too, and as well as inviting them. I think we could do both. Do you have a comment?
I think it would be appropriate to invite the mayor-elect as well, just to listen in. Mayor Wheeler, he's coming in very soon, and we really have no clue what relationship we'll have, and just it would be a nice invitation, I think.
Okay, do we want to wrap up discussion? Yes, Marie Claire?
Yeah, I want to clarify something for just for those of you who might not have been in the process from the get-go. Your recommendations, as we understand them, are for the policies that the Bureau is implementing, Tom. And so those recommendations, I understand the frustration. The Bureau has been frustrated because the policy development piece of this process has been slow. It took us 11 months to get 850-20 finalized and accepted and enacted, okay? So the recommendations that you have made are sitting, waiting for us to address these policies. We have a system in place where the DOJ and the COCO and the Bureau meet to discuss these directives. And that's what happened with the mental health one. I can assure you, and the letter attests to it, that the recommendations that the COAB made regarding the mental health directive were all considered, and many were incorporated, and then the DOJ sent that to the COAB. The same is true. We are now on the force policy, which you had a number of recommendations on. And last month just a few weeks ago, we met with DOJ for 2.5 days working on the force policy, and every one of COAB's recommendations were on a list that we looked at as we went through the development of the new policy directive for the Bureau. And every one of them was considered, and a number of them are going to be incorporated. I can assure you of that. It just hasn't been finalized yet. This is a process where the Bureau posts a directive, then it is put up for universal review, so we spend 30 days awaiting public comment. Then it comes down from that, and then we have a reconciliation process. We develop a version, it goes to the COCO and DOJ, they send us back their red line version, it goes back and forth until we come to some resolution. And now each month we have face-to-face meetings to go over these policies line by line. It is a tedious process, but it is a process that takes into account all of your recommendations. And I understand you have many others hanging out there, but we haven't gotten to all the policies that you have made recommendations on. As they come up, the next one will be, DOJ has identified that they want to do the 300 series, the accountability series. So once we finish the force, we will take on the Bureau's accountability group of policies, and all of the recommendations you made about those will be also considered at that time. But we are not going to comment in advance of the development of the directive as to what your recommendations are, because this is a back and forth process with the COCO and the Bureau and the DOJ. So that's the system we have in place. As I said, I understand that it's frustrating that it moves so slowly, but that's the way it works, and your things are not lost on us. They're being considered at every meeting.
Okay, Marie Claire, I don't think you're hearing us though. What Tom is trying to say is that when recommendations are sent, we don't get an email that informs us that we did receive your recommendations on these specific directives and we're working on them. Informed communication, that's not happening.
Okay.
There's nothing happening, so I don't know if the papers that have been collected are just sitting there and there's a stack of them, or if they're sitting on the DOJ's desk, or where they're at, but somebody needs to let us know what's happening, so the community, we can inform them and say, yes, they're working on it, and there's some feeling of hope with that. But right now, it's continual frustration of just, yes, we're working on it. Do you know what I mean? That's where we're at now.
Sure, and I will tell you that at the outset of this, when you guys decided that you wanted to tackle policies, and I believe Mr. Geisler addressed this. The agreement on all the parties was that you would take your recommendations for policies, and they would go to the COCO. The COCO would then send them to DOJ, and then DOJ took the responsibility for once the policy had been enacted and we would, came to a final, version, that they would send you back the finalized version with an explanation of which recommendations had been, enacted or incorporated, and if they weren't, what the reason was that the COAB's recommendations were not included. So that's the process, the protocol that we had set up at the outset. The reason, as I said, if you want more updates, I'm sure that we could keep you apprised, but the reason you haven't heard anything is because no other directive has happened except 850. There was one other directive that's been enacted, but COAB didn't have any recommendation on it, and that was 416. But then we did 850-20 and the 21-22 series, the mental health ones were done, and now we're doing force. So we really haven't gotten many done of all the ones that you have addressed.